What is up, Terror Talk fans? We are back here on episode 23. If you listened to our last episode, episode 22, you know that this episode is a direct segue from that last one where we were talking about Halloween Horror Nights Orlando 30. So, let's just dive right in. On Thursday, August 12th, we received an official announcement from Universal Studios Orlando, and this was the mother of all announcements. We received all of our house announcements that we'd been waiting for, as well as the 5 Scarezones and the 2 rumored shows. We received it all at the same time. They didn't waste any time at all. Well, on our last episode, we talked about the 5 houses that were announced, and so now we know that the 10 houses for this year's Halloween Horror Nights event are Beetlejuice, The Haunting of Hill House, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Bride of Frankenstein Lives, HHN Icons Captured, Welcome to Scary Horror in the Heartland, Case Files Unearthed The Legendary Truth, The Wicked Growth Realm of the Pumpkin, Puppet Theater Captive Audience, and finally, returning from HHN Light, which was the event we received in 2020, Revenge of the Tooth Fairy. So we finally received the announcements for all these houses, but we also received our announcements for the Scarezones. These Scarezones are CryptTV, 30 Years, 30 Fears, Seek and Destroy, Gorewood Forest, and Lights Camera Haction, Eddie's Revenge. So let's just dive right in. We're not going to waste any time here. Let's talk about them. So first up, the first one that they listed is CryptTV. Step inside CryptTV, a dark universe of monsters that reside in the same reality, on your screen, in your pockets, and now San Francisco. So this Scarezone is going to appear in the San Francisco area of the park. We have seen official things start going up for this Scarezone. We are very, very excited about it. It looks pretty interesting. Some of the things in there look a little cartoony. I'm not sure if that's intentional or what's going on there, but the set pieces almost look like there's something out of a comic or a cartoon or not. I don't know. I've never seen CryptTV or anything on CryptTV. I've been hearing a lot of things about it. A lot of people have been talking about it since this announcement came to fruition. So we're very curious about what we're getting with this Scarezone. I don't really know what kind of creatures we're getting. They say that it's a dark universe of monsters, so maybe this is a whole catalog that we're getting. Maybe there's going to be a lot of roaming about characters that we're going to meet in this Scarezone. Maybe some are normal looking creatures, maybe other ones are not so normal, maybe some are things we'd expect and not expect. The only thing I know about CryptTV is that it was created by the mind of Eli Roth, who I have such great respect for. He did a whole thing on AMC a couple years back about horror movies and such, so he is definitely a horror movie aficionado, so it is no surprise at all that he would come up with his own service called CryptTV and start creating his own shows. So that is pretty awesome. I'm very interested to see what we're going to get with this event. I'm very curious to see what the overall feeling, emotion we're going to receive in this Scarezone. Is it going to be more of a scary Scarezone, or is it going to be more of a picture Scarezone? Truthfully, a lot of our Scarezones this year definitely seem like the type that would be more scary than anything. None of them seem like they're flashy pictures. It may be the 30 Years, 30 Fears, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But we have seen several set pieces appear in the San Francisco area, lighting trusses, all of that. And this is, it's interesting. There's a lot of different things. I think one scene is like a bathroom or something. Another one is this door. I really don't understand. One of them has a spider on it. There's a lot to it, but I don't know anything about this CryptTV thing. So I don't really know much about this Scarezone. I'm very curious to see what we're going to experience there. Maybe I can try and sit down and watch a little bit of some stuff from CryptTV and just see what kind of thing we're dealing with here. So that's CryptTV. The second Scarezone, the one that I think we all saw coming, and definitely one of the most anticipated ones, is the 30th anniversary Scarezone, 30 years, 30 fears. The monsters you've most dreaded from past Halloween Horror Nights have taken over the streets. They're back, and your history. I'm very excited about this one. This is one I've been looking forward to for a while. Ever since the speculation map said that we might get this one, I was all for it immediately. Just because I love the idea of bringing back the icons from years past. I think that there's something really cool about that. And it gives the people who maybe didn't get to experience them before, it gives them a chance to experience it for themselves this year. Because I know for a fact I didn't experience any of the icons. I have never experienced Halloween Horror Nights, period. This is my first year. And so I'm very excited at the chance to actually see what these creatures, characters look like. You know, we've got Jack the Clown, we've got the Caretaker, we've got the Storyteller, we've got, let's see, who else? We've got Eddie, but we'll talk about him in a minute because there's something interesting about that one. I'm curious on that. We've got Fear, who is basically the overlord of everything, and you know, I've got some more questions about that as well. We have the Usher, the man who clubbed people with his flashlight. And then there's so many other ones. I mean, there's a whole catalog of characters who have been created for this event. So I'm very curious to see which ones are going to appear here, and in turn, which ones are going to appear in the Icon's house, because I would imagine that anybody in this Scarezone will coincide with the house as well. I'm almost kind of shocked they didn't put the house and Scarezone with each other. That's a tactic we've seen being done by some of the other theme parks around lately. They're right up the street at SeaWorld Orlando, their Hallow Scream event. They've got houses and Scarezones that coincide with each other. So it's kind of curious why they wouldn't do this. But already this Scarezone looks absolutely stunning. You can definitely tell this is going to be one of those regal ones. Like, it's going to be very big, very drawing to the eye. Like, as soon as you see it, you know you are home. We are here at Halloween Horror Nights, because it's literally, as soon as you walk in the park, there's this giant lighting truss with a banner at the top that says Halloween Horror Nights. There are all these photo opportunities, photo ops everywhere. It's incredible. There's so many special effects. If you look up at the top of the lighting rig, you'll notice all the different special effects that they have ready to go. I'm sure there's going to be some fire, maybe some strobe lights and fog. This is going to be a pretty epic Scarezone. I'm very excited about this. So good on Universal for giving us this one. I think this is one of those ones that's been highly anticipated by everybody for a very, very, very long time. And so to know that we are officially getting it now and getting to experience this one, that's going to be pretty awesome. And on top of that, we get the Icon's house. So I'm very curious about how they're going to do this. You know, it's going to be interesting. I'm very excited on it. Up next, we have Seek and Destroy. This Scarezone is located in the New York area of the park. It would appear that Universal had a glitch on their website because the description of this Scarezone is not correct. It is actually the description for the 30 years, 30 fears one, so I don't know if that's a glitch or what's going on, so we cannot read you the description. Basically, all we can tell you about it is a post-apocalyptic kind of world where there's this person called the Controller who basically sees all. They have these human people being used as fuel. So this is going to be an interesting one. We've already seen a lot of set pieces go up for this one, and now that we're seeing the imagery and all that for this, we know that this is going to be a really cool Scarezone. I think this one is probably at the top of my list for Scarezones, I'd have to say. Maybe between this and 30 Years, 30 Fears, just because I'm a nostalgic kind of guy. But the Seek and Destroy one looks really, really cool. You know, there's a lot of armored trucks and whatnot around the area, and barrels, and all these like giant tubs of red liquid, and what we can only assume is a body in the middle of it. So this is going to be a very interesting scare zone. I think we'll probably see a lot of like military type soldiers going about this scare zone. Definitely a lot of tortured people. This is definitely going to be a gory one. I guarantee you this is going to be our gore scare zone, because there's always that one that's just like really over the top, and I think this one is it. I'm very, very excited about this one, just to see what they're going to do in terms of, you know, having actors going around and seeing it at night with all the lighting packages and whatnot. I think this is going to be a really, really neat scare zone. I'm very, very excited about this one. Up next we have Gorewood Forest. 16 years after the gory sacrifices of Terra Cruentis, the Heartless Terror Queen is back. Evil is in her nature. So this is another one of those anniversary type scare zones, if you will, because the Terror Queen has appeared, I want to say, if I'm remembering the whole folklore of Halloween Horror Nights, she appeared at the event 16 years ago, and she said she would be back in 16 years, or she comes out every 16 years, something to that degree. Maybe I think it's 16, because it says 16 years after the gory sacrifices, so I'm assuming it's 16 years later. And so she has made an appear at the event. Apparently she is one of the, not necessarily a major icon, but she is a major character of Halloween Horror Nights. So I love that they've brought her back, and not only that, they're giving her own scare zone, which is very, very interesting, because she would technically be a part of the 30 Years, 30 Fears thing, I would think, unless that is being used exclusively for people, for the icons who were at the event from the very beginning. And I suppose that could be a possibility, but I'm not really sure. But I think this scare zone is going to be really, really neat, because it's in the Central Park area of the park, and that is always one that a lot of people give some great praises to, because it's in that whole like foresty kind of area, and there's usually a lot of really cool stuff happening over there. And we have seen one set piece come out, I think. I haven't seen much more yet, but we have seen one set piece, and that looks pretty neat. I'm very curious to see what we're going to get with this scare zone. I can tell you one thing for sure: it's going to be a loud scare zone. It is going to be very, very loud. And I only say this because we have seen the speakers that are set up in that scare zone, and there is a crap ton of them. There is literally like speaker, all like just lined up next to each other. It is going to be loud. I don't know what's going to be coming through the speakers, if it's going to be music, sound effects, whatnot. I suppose it could be for the show, the Marathon of Mayhem, but not many people have really speculated that that's what those speakers are for. They are all under the hardened impression that those speakers are 100% going to be used for this scare zone. So with that in mind, I think this is going to be a very loud, very intense scare zone as well. Like I said, I don't think there's going to be anything about this event that is, you know, picturesque, or not picturesque. It's not going to be a very, hey, let's stop and take, you know, photo ops and such. It's going to be a lot of gore and scaring happening. So I'm very excited about this one too. This is definitely up in the top 3 or so for my scare zone. Finally, we have Lights, Camera, Haction, Eddie's Revenge. Get ready for the feel-bad movie of the year. Eddie Schmidt, Jack the Clown's brother, is filming a horror film, and the monsters are real. So, Eddie. So he is like a very strange character at this event. He's like an icon, and he's not, because he was supposed to be the icon, for those of you who watched our history episode, he was supposed to be the icon during Halloween Horror Nights 2001, which I believe that was 11? It's either 9 or 11. I can't remember because I'm not looking at it right now. But he was supposed to be the icon for that year, but because of his gruesome nature, Universal said, nah, we're not going to use him, at least not for this year, because of the horrific events of 9/11. They decided that he would just be too much, and, you know, we wanted to give a little, we still wanted the Halloween feel, but we had to go a little more lighthearted that year, just to be very courteous and sensitive to what was going on at the time. So, totally understand. I do believe he came back in several years following, and so he has made his due appearances at Halloween Horror Nights, and now he is finally back again. Again, this is another one, he's kind of an icon in a way. So you would think he would appear in the 30 Years, 30 Fears Scare Zone, and actually, I believe on one of the images in the Scare Zone, one of the photo ops, his face is there. So I'm kind of like, so he's in several areas of the park, and I'd imagine, I guess, Tara Cruentis, the Terror Queen, she might be in several areas of the park as well, and we already know for 100% of a fact that Jack will be in several areas of the park. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Jack was kind of hanging out over here, because that was the big thing this year, was everybody was saying Jack is back, and he's going to be practically everywhere. So this is very exciting, I think. We're very excited about this event so far, and we think this is going to be really neat. I think it's going to be awesome to see all these different scare zones. This is another one that is definitely, I don't know that it's top 3. I guess this one would probably be 4 for me. Like, if I had to rate the scare zones right now, like, we're going to do a blind rating right now. I would say number 5 would be CryptTV. Number 4 would be Lights, Camera, Haction, Eddie's Revenge. Number 3, I'm going to say number 3 would be 30 Years, 30 Fears. And I'm only putting it there because I really am curious about this Terror Queen one and the Seek and Destroy one. I'm going to say the Terror Queen one is going to be the Gorewood Forest. That is going to be number 2. And number 1 for me, I think, is Seek and Destroy. Now, of course, once we go to the event, all of this could change. But those are going to be my top 5. That's where I'm rating them for now. So, and we'll talk about that again sometime soon. We've got an episode coming out very, very soon where we're going to rate our top 10 haunted houses and, you know, see where we put them before the event, and then we'll talk about them again after the event, see how they kind of fall. But we're going to take a short little break to hear from our sponsors, but we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hey there, Terror Talk fans. Are you looking for a new way to let your voice be heard? If so, check out our friends at Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for creating your very own podcast. They offer editing tools to create your podcast, which include your audio, listener audio, unique transitions, and custom advertisements. In addition, they'll also help you distribute your podcast to other listener sources, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. With this unique app, you also have the chance to get paid for your podcast by simply placing ads for various sponsors in your videos. Best part of it all? It is 100% free. Anchor does all the work for you and makes podcasting as simple as turning on a light. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM. Whether you're new to podcasting, doing it as a hobby, or hosting a professional show, Anchor is the place for you. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, on episode 23 of the Terror Talks. I'm your host, Jeremy. Before the break, we were talking about the 5 scare zones that were announced for Halloween Horror Nights 30. Universal Studios came out with their big announcement. Those scare zones are CryptTV, 30 Years, 30 Fears, Seek and Destroy, Gorewood Forest, and Lights, Camera, Haction, Eddie's Revenge. Now we're going to talk just a little bit about the shows that we're going to be receiving at this event. During HHN29, we received a brand new show, a new Lagoon show called the Marathon of Mayhem. This was a show that featured bits and pieces from the different houses and characters that you would be seeing this year at Halloween Horror Nights. Now, the Marathon of Mayhem is back, and this time it is called Marathon of Mayhem Carnage Factory. There's no manufacturing the screams as a terrifying show comes to life in Universal Studios Lagoon. It's a fear factory. So I'm very, very excited about this because I did not get to experience the original Marathon of Mayhem, and I'm gutted that I didn't get to do that because everything I have seen, heard, all of that has just told me how amazing that show was. And what I love about that one was that was the year that Universal played heavily into that 80s nostalgia. Like HHN29, I think a lot of people have said it was one of the best years that Universal ever had for Halloween Horror Nights. And it was merely because of that 80s nostalgia that a lot of people got to experience. And I'm very, very upset that I didn't get to experience it, but there was a lot going on at the time, and due to some other things happening, I was not able to attend. But this year will be different. We're going to make it. So I'm very curious, though, as to how this Marathon of Mayhem will be different. So back in 29, the big thing was you had the kind of synth music playing. There was a lot of synthesizer in the music. It was very almost dubstep, kind of. So it was like a mix of dubstep mixed with 80s synth. And I thought that was so cool, and the music sounded so awesome. Like, you know, you can go listen to it today, and it's just incredible how they did that. And not only that, just the coordination of all the lights and aspects of the show, everything about it was just incredible, and I hate that we missed it. So I'm very curious as to what we're going to get with this year, because during HHN 29, one of the big things you could really do, or one of the big things that they did do, was they were able to use a lot of their IPs in the water screen images. So, you know, you saw Stranger Things and Riding on the Bike and all that. You saw the Killer Clowns. You saw the Ghostbusters. You know, you saw all of these things that played into the 80s nostalgia, and then also were part of the event. And so that was the interesting thing with that year, was you had that. This year, we don't have nearly as many IPs. In fact, we only have, in my opinion, 3 IPs, and those are The Haunting of Hill House, Beetlejuice, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A lot of people are saying, well, The Bride of Frankenstein is technically an IP. Yes, it is, but it's an IP with its own twist and creative story. So it's kind of depends on how you look at it and who you are. I'm still not thoroughly convinced that it is technically IP for this event. But that being said, I am very, very curious as to what we're going to get with this event this year, with this Marathon of Mayhem. I think maybe it'll be a little bit heavier. It'll be a different little route than what we got last time. So last time we got that 80s nostalgia. Maybe this time we'll get a little bit more of a kind of grunge, heavy, not heavy metal, but more of a heavier kind of sound, maybe, perhaps. I don't know. I'm just merely speculating based on what we've seen before and what we know about this. So it could be anything. But I am very, very curious about this Marathon of Mayhem. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think I'm going to really enjoy it, being that it'll be my first time seeing it since I didn't get to see the original one. And I'm curious to see what Universal has up their sleeve for this, because I think a lot of people were expecting, well, maybe they'll just use the one from last year again, because we didn't know what budgets looked like out there, what they had available to them, that sort of thing. So a lot of people were speculating, well, they could just reuse what they had last year. But I know Universal is not in the business of redoing anything for Halloween Horror Nights. They always try to come up with something new each year, and they always succeed with that. So I'm very excited about this. This is going to be a lot of fun. The second show is the show that's going to be taking place in the Fear Factor Live Stadium. I'm not even sure if we can call it the Fear Factor Live Stadium because it has not housed Fear Factor for quite some time. But some sources at the park have told me that Fear Factor will return at some point, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the show that's going to take place on that stage, and that is Halloween Nightmare Fuel. A new show is igniting Halloween Horror Nights, featuring fire, pyro, and aerial performers. So again, not a whole lot to go off of based on the description, but we do know that in the past, this stage has been used for Academy of Villains was the name of the show, and that was a big kind of dance thing. There was a lot of, I believe it was a dance show, more or less, but it was like a Halloween-themed dance show. And then before that, you know, you had Bill and Ted. I think a lot of people expected Bill and Ted to come back to this event in some capacity, so a lot of people, I think, are probably a little upset that they're not getting Bill and Ted, but we will survive without them. I'm confident that at some point they will return to the event, and just because they're the ones who started it all, maybe for the 50 years they will appear again. Who knows? But I'm confident one day we will see Bill and Ted yet again. But this show is shaping up to look like something that's going to be really cool. We have seen inside the Fear Factor Theater ever so briefly. You can see just over the top. You can see all the new lighting effects and speakers and pyro. Everything has gone into this show. It looks like it's going to be pretty intense. I imagine it's going to be very, very pyro heavy just because of the name. It's called Halloween Nightmare Fuel. So I think we're going to see a lot of explosions and maybe fire eaters and fireworks, things of that nature. I think it's definitely going to be a heavy kind of show, so the music is going to be definitely a little bit heavier than what you would get anywhere else, and I think that's going to be really, really neat. It's going to be a very cool show, and since I've never experienced any of the other ones either, then this is still going to be an experience for me, and I think it'll be really cool to see what it's like for the first time. You know, I hope that it goes well. I hope everybody enjoys it, and I think they will. I think this will be a worthy adversary to Academy of Villains. I'm not sure why Academy of Villains went away. I believe there was a reason, but I think it might have been something a little controversial. I'm not positive. So we're not really going to talk about it, but I am curious as to why that left and why we have a new show now. But we're going to love it. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be explosive, fiery. It's going to be heavy, and it's going to be awesome. I can already tell. Universal does not typically disappoint with many things, so I think it's going to be pretty cool. But those are all the announcements for Universal Studios Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights event, Halloween Horror Nights 30. We are just absolutely amazed and so excited by what we're getting this year. We're grateful we're getting an event at all. They literally could have given us 3 houses, and I think I still would have been grateful because, you know, it's the fact that we got anything at all. That was the big thing with a lot of people last year. You know, we were all very grateful to even get what little bit of houses we did get because of the pandemic and canceling the event. You know, we were able to get Revenge of the Tooth Fairy and Bride of Frankenstein last year, and then for one night only Beetlejuice, and that was enough to please anybody. You know, we were all happy with that, and we could live happily ever after for that year. But to be able to receive this full event this year, I think it is going to be an incredible year of Halloween Horror Nights. Very excited that we are going to get to go down there. My brother is going to be covering the event for 6 nights, so he is going to get to experience it 6 different times. I'm only going to get to experience it 3, maybe 4 nights. I'm not really sure because I'm going to be traveling down to Tampa for Busch Gardens' Hallow-Scream event, and then one of the nights I will be over at SeaWorld in Orlando for their Hallow-Scream event, and I may try to stop in at a couple of the local haunts as well. One of them being the 13th floor. I believe that is somewhere down near Busch Gardens. I believe it's pretty close, but I'm not sure how close. We'll have to see just how far I'm having to go from my location to get to that one. But that's one we definitely want to get to try and experience this year, because we didn't get to last year, and I think that was one we really wanted to do. We've heard a lot of great things about it. But that is HHN30 for you guys at Universal Studios Orlando. We are having 10 houses. That's right, 10 houses. They are Beetlejuice, The Haunting of Hill House, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Bride of Frankenstein Lives, HHN Icons Captured, Welcome to Scary, Horror in the Heartland, Case Files Unearthed, The Legendary Truth, Wicked Growth, The Realm of the Pumpkin, Puppet Theater, Captive Audience, and last but certainly not least, Revenge of the Tooth Fairy. This is going to be an incredible year of houses. We're going to do an episode sometime soon where we're going to talk about our top 10, where we rate these 10 houses for the event. You know, we kind of have an idea of what we're looking forward to and such. So we're going to talk about that. And then, of course, we have our 5 scare zones, which are CryptTV, 30 Years, 30 Fears, Seek and Destroy, Gorewood Forest, and Lights Camera Haction, Eddie's Revenge. And of course, we already told you where we rate these in order for each of these houses. And then finally, we have our 2 shows, Marathon of Mayhem, Carnage Factory, and then Halloween Nightmare View. This is going to be a very, very cool event. We are so excited. So glad we get to make it down there. But that is going to do it for us today on episode 23 of the Terror Talks. We hope you enjoyed this episode and the last episode, talking all about Halloween Horror Nights 30 and all of the awesome announcements that we have received. If you liked the show and you like what we do, be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe below. Let us know what you like and what you don't like. You can contact us at all of our social media accounts, and you can send us an email to theterrortalks@gmail.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're the Terror Talks on all of those, as well as various listening sites, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and several others that are listed in the description. You can go support us just a little bit more by going and checking out our Patreon, where you can subscribe to any one of our 3 packages. You pay a little bit a month, and that helps support us and helps us to put out new content. So go see if one of those packages interests you. You get all sorts of neat perks with the various ones. Also, go check out our website. We are theterrortalks.wordpress.com. If you go to that website, you will see all of our episodes are there, and you can also subscribe to an email list where we will email you about upcoming things, upcoming episodes, things we're doing. Maybe at some point down the road we'll do giveaways and things like that, so you don't want to miss those. Go check out our friends over at the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast, or UUOP for short. They are covering all things Universal Studios Orlando and Universal in general. Also, if you like them, you can go check out their sister podcast, the Rush of Fear podcast. They're covering all things Halloween Horror Nights. And then you can jump over to the West Coast and check out our friends at the Theme Park Duo podcast, and they're covering all things Knott's Scary Farm and Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland and Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, and of course HHN Hollywood and Universal Studios Hollywood. So go check them out. That's the Theme Park Duo podcast. And also go check out our friends at Tales from the Creeps. They're covering all things supernatural, paranormal, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, and just downright creepy. Finally, we want to thank you for being a loyal listener on our show. We could not do the show without you. You make the show happen. So thank you so much for always tuning in, subscribing, and being a part of the journey with us. So we will see you guys next time on the Terror Talks. And until next time, be good out there. Don't text and drive. And be excellent to each other. Take care, guys.